Welcome to Urban Legends, and in tonight's video, we'll be exploring one of the most disturbing medical myths of all time. This is the story of the kidney heist. The sun had long disappeared below the horizon, and the city's nightlife came alive with the buzz of music, laughter, and clinking glasses. Eric had flown in for a conference, an obligatory networking event he loathed, but couldn't avoid. The unfamiliar city shimmered with neon lights, and the air hummed with the possibilities of adventure. His colleagues had opted for a quiet dinner, but being a young man, Eric craved something more exciting. A sleek rooftop bar had caught his eye earlier, and it seemed the perfect escape from the monotony of corporate handshakes and forced small talk. The bar was everything he hoped it would be. Upscale, lively, and populated by a crowd that exuded sophistication. He nursed a neat whiskey as his gaze wandered over the city skyline, and he barely noticed a woman in a striking black dress approaching him. Her presence was magnetic and her smile was disarming. She introduced herself, then complimented Eric's appearance. He was flattered, and they talked some more. One drink turned into two, then three. She insisted he try a special cocktail the bar was known for, and when it arrived, its vibrant color was as enticing as the night itself. Eric remembered lifting the glass to his lips, the drink's sweet and tangy flavor lingering on his tongue, but that was the last thing he recalled before the world spiraled into darkness. When Eric woke up, it was as though he had been plunged into an icy abyss. He blinked against the harsh light above him, and his head pounded with a relentless throbbing ache. His skin prickled as he realized he was lying in a tub filled with ice. He tried to move, but his body felt leaden, every muscle was sluggish and unresponsive. As his vision cleared, panic gripped him. The room was unfamiliar and dirty. The walls were plain, the kind you might find in an abandoned motel, and the air reeked of disinfectant. A dull ache radiated from his lower back, growing sharper as his senses slowly returned. His hand instinctively moved to the source of the pain, and he felt it. There was a bandage crudely taped to his skin. The edges were sticky, and the area beneath it burned with a raw and unnatural heat. A sense of dread pooled in his stomach. His breathing quickened as he scanned the room for any kind of answers. On the edge of the tub sat a folded piece of paper, its edges were damp from the condensation in the room. His trembling hand reached for it, unfolding the note with agonizing slowness. The words, scrawled in shaky handwriting, sent a chill deeper than the ice. It read, "Do not move, call 911 immediately, your life is at risk." Eric's mind raced, his thoughts fragmented and chaotic. What had happened to him? The night before came back in disjointed flashes: the bar, the woman in the black dress, the drink. He fought to steady his breath, his chest heaving as the enormity of his situation sank in. Someone had done this to him, they had taken something from his body. But what, and why? His gaze darted around the room, searching for a phone or anything else he could use. On a rickety table nearby, he spotted his phone. Its screen was cracked but functional. He reached for it, but each shift in the ice sent jolts of pain through his spine. He ignored the agony, driven by sheer survival instinct. His fingers fumbled to dial, and the operator's calm voice on the other end was the first human sound he'd heard since waking. "Stay on the line," they said, "help is on the way." Minutes felt like hours as he waited, the cold seeping into his bones. He thought of the woman, and Eric was sure she was responsible. The thought made his stomach churn. He tried to piece together how he had ended up here, but the answers eluded him, leaving only a gnawing sense of betrayal. When the paramedics arrived, their faces betrayed a mixture of professionalism and horror. They lifted him from the tub, their gloved hands were gentle but firm. As they worked, one of them pulled back the bandage to assess the wound. The sharp intake of breath from the medic confirmed what Eric already feared. "It's surgical and clean," the medic murmured, almost to themselves. Eric's world tilted as the words sank in. Someone had operated on him. The pain in his back was no accident, it was deliberate and calculated. His mind conjured horrific images, masked figures in a dimly lit room, the sterile glint of surgical tools, his body lifeless and vulnerable. At the hospital, the grim reality was laid bare. Scans confirmed it. His left kidney was gone. The doctors spoke in measured tones, explaining the risks, the need for monitoring, the permanent impact on his health. But their words felt distant, muffled by the roar of his own thoughts. Who had done this and why? The police arrived. Their questions were probing but sympathetic. They had seen cases like this before, though rarely in such a blatant manner. Organ trafficking, they explained, was a dark underworld few dared to imagine. Desperate individuals willing to pay fortunes for a transplant. Ruthless criminals would stop at nothing to supply the demand. Eric's case was textbook, they said, drugged, taken to an undisclosed location, operated on, and discarded like refuse. Days turned into weeks, and though Eric's body began to heal, his mind remained trapped in that icy tub. Sleep was a fleeting mercy, haunted by nightmares of shadowy figures and cold steel. He avoided mirrors, unable to face the hollow-eyed reflection staring back. The scar on his back became a grotesque reminder of what had been stolen from him, not just physically but emotionally. His sense of safety, his trust in others, his very identity, all stripped away in one horrifying night. The woman in black was never found. The investigation stalled, leads dried up, and Eric was left with more questions than answers. The city became a specter in his memory, a place he vowed never to return. He moved on, or at least tried to, but the experience clung to him like a shadow. Every drink offered by a stranger, every fleeting smile, every unfamiliar place, all carried the weight of his trauma. Years later, the memory still lurked in the corners of his mind, a dark and twisted chapter of his life. The scar remained, a jagged line etched into his flesh, a permanent reminder of the night he lost more than a kidney. He had escaped with his life, but the cost was immeasurable. And somewhere, in the labyrinth of the underworld, his kidney had become a commodity, traded and sold, its origins erased. The thought was as cold as the ice that had once encased him, a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty. The Kidney Heist urban legend, also known as the stolen kidney, is a chilling story that originated in the late 20th century. Its roots can be traced to anxieties surrounding organ transplantation, medical ethics, and global disparities in healthcare. This legend's widespread appeal lies in its visceral nature, tapping into deep-seated fears of exploitation and medical malpractice. It mirrors societal anxieties about trust, especially when dealing with strangers or unfamiliar environments, and highlights the pervasive fear of commodification in modern society, where even human organs might be bought and sold for profit. The legend's popularity surged with the advent of the internet in the 1990s, as email chains, forums, and later social media platforms spread the story far and wide. While the Kidney Heist story itself is fictional, it has drawn attention to real and concerning issues. Organ trafficking does exist, although in forms very different from the legend. The World Health Organization and other bodies have documented cases of illegal organ trade, often involving vulnerable populations coerced or tricked into selling their organs. In some instances, individuals from impoverished communities consent to organ removal under dubious conditions for meager compensation. However, these scenarios differ massively from the dramatic and violent depiction in the urban legend. No verified case matches the legend's specific narrative of an unsuspecting victim forcibly drugged and robbed of a kidney. Medical professionals and law enforcement agencies have debunked the story numerous times, emphasizing the logistical and technical challenges of such an act. Performing organ transplantation requires sterile environments, highly skilled personnel, and a viable recipient immediately available, making the logistics of the urban legend implausible. Nevertheless, the tale persists as a cautionary myth, warning individuals to remain vigilant, particularly when traveling abroad or interacting with strangers. In conclusion, the Kidney Heist legend is a modern myth born from fears of exploitation and medical commodification. The legend endures not because it is factual, but because it resonates emotionally, encapsulating anxieties about trust, health, and the darker sides of human nature.